All right, guys, I'm going to try and catch one more from yesterday's sunrise because it's just so beautiful. But we're in our series on how to survive suffering. We're talking about faith, and we're talking about how our faith is impacted and strengthened at the point of prayer. We are saying how that prayer helps us not to do certain things. Today, I want to tell you that prayer helps you not to focus on somebody to blame, and that causes you to complain. Remember yesterday we said the 3 C's: don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Those are the things that are terribly unattractive in people when they do that sort of stuff. But prayer helps us to contextualize life to the point where we understand the will of God, and it basically stops us from getting to the point of complaining. Now, I love the story of Joseph dearly, and I look at a man who had everybody to blame. He could have blamed his father for the fact that he was the favored one. Why did you send me out to my brothers that day, Dad? You know, you knew they didn't like me, and you knew that they had it in for me. Dad, I could blame you for me ending up in prison and being sold as a slave. He could have complained about his brothers, which he never did. At the end of the day, when he met his brothers and he said to them, you planned it for evil, but God planned it for good, he could have blamed his brothers for his demise and finding himself as a slave. He could have blamed Potiphar's wife. There's this beautiful woman coming onto me, and he could have blamed her for the lie that she told about him that ended him in prison. He could have blamed the guy who was in prison with the pourer for the king, who promised he would represent him well to the king, but he never did. He could have blamed any of those people. But you never once see Joseph, even in the pit of a prison and as a slave, he never once is recorded as ever having complained about anything. And I'm looking at him and saying, what's so special about him? Is he just a good person? Has he just got good genetics and good genes? Or does he know something that we may need to find out? And indeed he did. Not only did he submit to the will of God, but he understood this. He understood that as legitimate as blame might be, it's just not helpful. Maybe you've had stuff happen in your life and you're saying, man, I could blame that guy or that woman or that person for the place that I find myself in today. And you know what? Your blame towards that person may absolutely be legitimate. It might absolutely be the truth. But let me ask you, is it helpful? Is it helpful that you sit there and blame and cogitate and get into self-pity as we spoke about yesterday? It's not helpful at all. We live in a messed up world. People are going to mess you up. And if every time somebody messes you up, you call a pity party and you sit and say, who can I blame for this? You find yourself in the most miserable place. And so I urge you today to take your eyes off the situation, take your eyes off the people that you would wish to blame for that, and do 2 things. The first thing is, have a look at God. Focus on Him. That's what prayer is all about. And just say, Lord, you never, when they accused you, you never said, hey, don't you know who I am? Don't you know that I am God? And even when you stood in front of Pilate and we see Jesus standing there, we say, Lord, you stood in front of him. You could have called 10,000 angels. You could have blamed him. You could have blamed the Jewish people. You could have blamed 1,000 people for the fact that you're standing about to be crucified. Jesus never did that. And even though his blame was legitimate, it certainly was not helpful. So maybe today, the second thing is, if you want to get over your blame, have a look at the sunrise behind me. Oh, we have an enormous God. We have a great God who wants you to be joyful, who wants you to roll with the punches, who wants you to get up and fight again. And so often, and we use this rugby analogy of the yellow card and the red card, we get yellow carded because we mess up and we sit in the sin bin for a while. But then we get the opportunity after 10 minutes to get back onto the field again. And we don't go back onto the field and blame the ref. You messed up. You got kicked off. It was legitimate, the blame he laid on you, and now you have the opportunity to get back in the game. We all have yellow cards from time to time, but you'll notice God never gives a red card. He never kicks you out of the game. He never says, you're to blame, therefore I'm going to get rid of you. Maybe we don't learn how to do that with other people in our lives as well. So remember today that blame, and I'm not belittling anybody's pain that you go through because you suffer, because somebody messes you up. but I'm not stupid enough to think that that's a good thing to do. Blame may be legitimate, but let me tell you people, like with Jesus, it's just not helpful. So find another way of dealing with the blame, and I think you know what it is. So have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.